Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and part 2 of our Premier League 25-26 previews, in which we'll look at the prospects of Burnley, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Everton and Fulham. Real mixed bag on this episode. As with part 1, we'll be looking at where each team left off, their summer business, their manager and style of play, key players for this season, and of course, our patented Total Soccer Show very specific predictions. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, there he is, Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, my friend. Excited to be here. Excited to only have to preview one team. Is it you who has the multiple today, Ryan?
Ryan's got the 2 for today.
There we go.
Yep. Ryan didn't realise he had the 2 for when he started his research yesterday. Late night, Taylor.
But you're ready to go now? You feeling optimistic? You feeling confident?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm going to tell you so much about Burnley and Fulham. You're going to wish you didn't know as much about Burnley and Fulham.
I already do.
In the next hour. There we go. Joe Lowry, hello. How are you?
I'm concerned about the threats that are being issued early on in this show. I think even despite that, I'm doing well. Ryan, thank you for asking. I've decided I'm doing well. I'm excited for this show.
Me too. And not just because Graham Rubbin's with us. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. Good nicknames in today's shows. Today's teams we're previewing. We've got the Eagles. We've got the Toffees, which is one of the best nicknames in the Premier League. What's Fulham's? The Cottagers, that's a good one as well. We can just ignore the Blues, that's a bit boring. And what's Burnley's? The Clarets. That's fun to say, the Clarets, but it's just a colour. But I like the Toffees.
Clarets is just a colour. It's weird that we've got 3 Claret teams, haven't we? And Claret is not a colour we say very often.
English football heritage.
Yeah. It's weird that we only have 3, I would say. That seems to be, is that like the most popular color combination for whatever reason? I guess red and white or red and black.
It's got to be
popular.
Right? Yeah. Claret, the Villa, the Burnley, the other one, the West Ham, that's the other one. There we go. Good conversation. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you'll find our bonus content. We've got our bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server where you can come and have a chat with us. On the bonus feed this week, lots of Premier League goodies. We've wrapped our Golden Boot predictions. And coming to the feed this week also, kits. Graham's going to talk kits. I've had a look at some of the kits, Graham. There's some nice ones, there's some not so nice ones. Let's find out what's what on the bonus feed, shall we?
Yeah, are the nice ones made by Hummel?
Maybe.
Because I think they are.
Ooh.
Spoiler alert.
Are you a shareholder in Hummel? Because you talk about them a lot, Graham.
I should be. I really should be. That's my dream, actually. That's my dream.
Graham, can I challenge you by saying that I think Castore has done the best job of anybody so far?
Ooh.
They may be on my list. They may be on my list. Keep it for the Patreon.
Weren't they the ones last season who their shirts got like too wet and they couldn't be worn or something?
Yeah, they are the premium sportswear brands whose shirts disintegrate at the merest of touches.
Sorry that they care about being biodegradable, guys. Jeez.
Yeah.
The polar bears like Castore, let's say that. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is our bonus feed. Please, Anna, thank you. All right, let's get to our Premier League previews. We're going to kick off with Burnley. I'm going to have the privilege of telling you all about the Premier League's yo-yo club. Too good for the Championship, not good enough for the Premier League. They're somewhere in the purgatory between the two leagues. Up and down every season the last 4 seasons. They failed to survive on their last 2 attempts in the Premier League. Last time around in the Premier League, they did not leave the relegation zone. But as a city, as a team of their city, they're overachieving.
We've got Ryan talking about Burnley as a city. This is a trap.
No sanitation commissioners on this one. Don't worry. I just wanted to make the point that Burnley has a population of 800,000. They are overachievers in terms of the size of their city. They've spent 9 of the last 12 seasons in the Premier League. That is very good indeed. They start off on Saturday at 10 Eastern against Tottenham, against a team obviously with something to prove. They've also got Liverpool and Man City within their first 6 games as well. Her boy. But their second game is at home to Sunderland. Checks notes, they failed to beat Sunderland twice last season. Okay then, wow, very good. What did they get up to last season? Of course, they were promoted second in the Champo. They finished on Trippy Digis, 100 points, just like Leeds United. They had They had a 33-match unbeaten run. They were completely unbeaten at home, were Burnley. They lost 2 games. One of them was to Sunderland. They're undefeated in league play since November 3rd as well. That's very impressive. Probably the most impressive stat from Burnley last season. They conceded 16 goals, 1-6 in 46 matches. That is English league history right there. 30 clean sheets as well. That's pretty good. 16 draws, though. and not the biggest entertainer, shall we say. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. But they are, of course, back up at first time of asking after being relegated under Vincent Kompany, who moved on to bigger things. Okay, what have they got up to last summer? This summer, even. They've lost a lot of players in that defence that was really, really good, basically. CJ Egan-Riley, centre-back at the heart defence, has gone to Marseille. James Trafford, Champo keeper of the season. He's gone to Manchester City. Martin Dubravka has come in as keeper there, but that's obviously a big loss for them. Midfielder and captain Josh Brownhill, 18 goals last season. He was their top scorer. He has announced his departure. I don't think he's left as of recording, but he's going to go somewhere on a free. And lots of buzz a few weeks ago about striker Joe Wesley lighting it up last season. He's gone to Dundee. Okay, cool. In has come Kyle Walker and Axel Tuanzebe, both with Premier League experience, of course. Kyle Walker, as we know, 35 years old. Not ideal age range for your right back there. Tuanzebe, obviously part of the Ipswich sinking ship last season as well. They have spent elsewhere, though, a little bit, and actually a lot at Chelsea. They seem to have a standing account with Chelsea. Leslie Ugochukwu, I apologise if I pronounced that wrong, defensive midfielder who was at Southampton last season, of course, owned by Chelsea. Armando Broja, also owned by Chelsea, it was most recently on loan at Everton, has come in as well. And left back Bashir Humphreys, who's come in for 12 million. He was actually at Burnley last season. He's been made permanent as well. Also, we've had a bit of a change in the front office. It's become a multi-club ownership team, has Burnley. They are owned, the US owned by ALK Capital Investment. And they've purchased Espanyol as well. So they've got a nice little Spanish club in their group now as well. Their ownership group, of course, includes JJ Watt, him who did the NFL stuff. Very good. Manager, Scott Parker, we know all about him. He's got plenty of Premier League management experience. Bit more pragmatic than Vincent Kompany, you would probably say. This is his third promotion. He's a promotion expert. He's promoted Fulham and Bournemouth as well. This is a team that is very much, as we've outlined, built on its defence. I think survival is ultimately going to be dependent on retaining that strong defence, but as we've noted, some pieces are now missing as well. Obviously they're going to try and be defensively solid. They're not going to be gung-ho, I wouldn't have thought, in this Premier League season. But if they don't have the offensive players to relieve that defence at the other end now and then, they might just end up, best case scenario, losing a lot of games narrowly without scoring, which would be the unfortunate sort of scenario for them. But, solid at the back. Parker likes a 4-2-3-1, possession, patient build-up. Not known for letting his creativity flourish among his players. A bit boring, is what you might say. So what I'm hearing here is they're not going to be entertaining and they're probably going to go down. They're going to be a great watch. Burnley this season is where I'm heading with this one. So glad to kick off the episode with Burnley, whose key players include, but are not limited to, Luca Coglioscio of Norfolk, Connecticut, and of the Italy national team currently. 3 goals in 34 appearances. Is that a key player? No, don't think it is, actually. But I thought I'd mention him. Maxime Esteve as well, the French centre-back who was with Egan-Riley last season. Among Burnley fans, is regarded as probably the best defender they've had, the best centre-half they've had. They've got a few other key players. Hannibal Medbury, formerly of Man United, of course, attacking midfielder. The Poop Hauser in chief. I think we'll see some cards perhaps come his way this season, so look out for him. It's an interesting squad here. There's players who definitely made a difference in the Championship, but ultimately it feels like this Burnley team might lack the quality and the difference makers they might need to stay up. I think most models have Burnley going down. A lot of models have Burnley finishing 20th, unfortunately for them. I think it would be a pretty big surprise. Not impossible, but a big surprise if Burnley survive this campaign, given what they're up against here. My very specific prediction, though, is it pertains to their league placing. Here we go. Burnley will lose fewer than 24 games and will get more than 26 points. I want both of those things to happen. So the reason I've picked those numbers, in the past 2 seasons, no promoted side has picked up more than 26 points, which Luton got in 23-24. And all of those 6 teams who went down lost more than 24 games. So what I'm saying is they're going to go down, but they're going to be better than the teams who've gone down in the last 2 seasons. One of which was Burnley, incidentally. So there we go. Burnley. Graham, are you excited to be electrified by Scott Parker's pragmatic defensive play?
Nope, I am not. There's very little to be quite frank, there's very little to get excited about with Burnley this season. I mean, even their ownership structure makes it difficult for them to go out and do some of the things that, you look at Wrexham with kind of like big name American owners or Birmingham City, and they spent a lot of money. Burnley can't do that with JJ Watt because of the way that their ownership is structured. They basically did exactly the same thing that the Glazers did to buy Manchester United. They used the club's own money and its own assets to get the money from the bank to buy the club, which then has loaded the club with like £100 million in debt. They've got to repay that debt every single season, which means they can't pay their best players the wages that they deserve when they get promoted to the Premier League, which means their best players leave every single season. They can't really replace them adequately. They continue to do this yo-yo cycle, and that is my bet. I'm not quite so certain on who's going to win the title. I think the top 4 race is going to be exciting this season. I think there's a chance that Leeds and Sunderland are competitive this season in the way that previous promoted teams haven't been. I'm afraid I don't have the same hope for Burnley, who I think are absolute dead certain to go down, unless they find some money down the back of the sofa and make some signings between now and the end of the window.
I mean, if they're going to go the Man United model, you may as well get some Malaysian noodle sponsors and some like Nigerian tractors. I think that's the only way to go.
That is the only way to go, yeah.
I'm going to put a name in the chat.
Dave's Coaches, I think, is their main sponsor. Aren't they the one that's on the stand at Turf Moor? You can see it's something like Dave's Coaches. It's great.
I did a piece.
They're huge in Thailand.
There you go.
Dave's Coaches.
I did a piece a long time ago about maybe it was for Paste way back when, about like the best local sponsors, and Burnley had some of the best ones, including a lot of like local pie suppliers. So maybe that could appeal to Graham. Maybe that pulls Graham in. Ooh. I'm putting a name in the chat. It's one of their signings from Feyenoord. Would anyone like to have a go at trying to pronounce that first name? I'm going to go with
Quilindishi.
Yeah, of course. Quilinshi? That's what I'm going to say.
Oh, don't come to me for that. I'm the wrong person.
Nah, come on, Graham. You can do it.
Quilindishke Hartman.
Nailed it.
Hartman. I've nailed that bit.
Yep. It'd be amazing if you got the first one right and the second one wrong.
Cartman. Damn. Almost had it.
So close.
Yeah, he's going to be great as our Burnley, Taylor. I think is where we can.
I'm picking up that vibe. Yeah, that I should expect big, exciting things from Burnley and boring Scott Parker.
Good stuff. Wonderful. All right, Joe. Unless there's any more, we can jump to a quick break and we'll come back with Chelsea and Crystal Palace. That sound good to you, Joe?
It sounds better than good, right? It sounds great.
Oh, amazing! Quick break. We're coming back soon. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Premier League previews, episode 2 of 4. So much preview to give this week, Joe, so much. And we're going to kick off next with Chelsea. It's been all change at the Bridge. I could probably, if you put a gun to my head, only name 15 of their 86 signings this summer. So let's go through it. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll get to all of the summer signing stuff. First of all, you undersold Chelsea. They're world champions, Chelsea Football Club. Thank you very much. Yeah, watch it, Buster. Last season, Chelsea finished 4th in the Premier League. 69
World
points,
champions.
15 behind Liverpool. World champions. They are fresh off of that Club World Cup win. And much more importantly, sorry, I buried the lead, the Europa Conference League win, which now is a tournament I'm very invested in after we did our European Club Trophy draft, but is really quite dumb, and I don't like it at all. But they did win that, and that's super cool. And they talked about it all throughout the Club World Cup as a great accomplishment, when it is very much not. They did show some real potential last year, Chelsea, as a legitimate competitor across both England and Europe. I think they can be that this season. Some of that was borne out in their numbers last year. Some of that was borne out in the tape. They have been climbing ever since that disastrous 22-23 season where they finished 12th. They've gone from 12th to 6th, from 6th to 4th. I miss those days. We could make a lot more fun of Chelsea then. I was having a good time. I think everybody was, except for Chelsea fans. Now they are starting to turn the table on that. Can they continue to climb from 4th to something higher than 4th? Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's legitimately possible this year. Last season, they finished 3rd in the Premier League in expected goal differential. They had the 3rd best attack based off of XG. They were 6th in expected goals allowed. They were the youngest team in the Premier League last season, based off of average age weighted by minutes played, 23.7 years. And despite being the youngest team in the league, they finished 3rd in expected goal differential. That is really, really impressive stuff. If you're young, you're usually underway to being good. You're not already good. But last year's Chelsea team was kind of already good. In terms of standouts last season, Cole Palmer had another great season, not quite as good as the one before, but still 19 non-penalty goal contributions. He is the star of this team. Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez both seem to get better as two young, really, bordering on world-class midfielders. Levi Colwill became a full-time starter at center back at 21, showed so much in that spot. Torn his ACL over the offseason, so he is going to miss what I would assume is all of this season effectively. But the TLDR for Chelsea's last year is that it was a season that showed progress and potential for a team that could really contend this year. And that leads us into, well, what have they done over the summer to try and help expedite that process? And oh, baby, this is the section you dream of when you get assigned the Chelsea preview. This is my Super Bowl. Everybody move out of the way. In terms of outgoings, Nani Madueke to Arsenal for 56 million euros, North London derby, whatever, cash that check. Joao Felix is off the books over to Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia for 30 million euros. Georgi Petrovic, I mentioned on yesterday's show, he's gone to be the number one at Bournemouth. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall to Everton for 29 million euros. He's come up a weird amount over the last couple of days. Another 35 million odd euros in sales. And in terms of deals that are not done on the outgoing side, but seem likely to happen, Nicholas Jackson, who was their starting striker last season, started the Club World Cup as their go-to number 9. He is on the way out. It certainly sounds like he could be Newcastle's consolation prize. We will see where that lands. But Nicholas Jackson, it does not seem like, will play for Chelsea this season. Christopher Nkunku is seemingly on his way out. He could be part of a deal for Xavi Simons. Raheem Sterling is likely on his way out, and really even more than that. So there's a lot going on the outgoing side. Now let's talk incomings, shall we? Graham's favorite child, João Pedro, who will come up later in my preview. He's arrived from Brighton, straight off the beach into the Club World Cup spotlight, helped them become world champions, 64 million euros. I want people to know that, like, I'm being tongue-in-cheek about the world champions thing. Like, I need that to be very, very clear. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy. He was good at the Club World Cup, though, for whatever that's worth. He's in as a number 9 option, 64 million euros. Liam Delap coming in from Ipswich for 35 million euros. Why sign one striker when you could sign 2 and force your other striker out the door? You know what I mean? Jamie Gittins is in from Borussia Dortmund for 56 million euros. Jarell Hato, left back from Ajax, who I'm prepared to love with my whole heart, 44 million euros. Estevao coming from Palmeiras, the youngster Brazilian, 34 million euros. They've added another 45-odd million in incomings for U21 talent, and may still be on the move for another center back after Colwill tore his ACL, although we're still not exactly sure what direction that pursuit is going to go in. And then in terms of deals that are not done, but seem likely to happen, I mentioned Xavi Simons. It seems like he is going to end up in Chelsea from RB Leipzig. And then Garnacho coming from Manchester United. He was just training. I don't know if you guys saw this picture. Garnacho is just moping, lifting weights with his head bowed.
So funny.
And Fabrizio Romano, who's clearly texting with with Garnacho, is like, yeah, he's just waiting so patiently for this move to Chelsea. It's so sad for him right now, blah, blah, blah. Seems like they're going to sign Garnacho, Chelsea, as well as potentially Donnarumma coming from PSG. They are one of the teams in for Donnarumma. Robert Sanchez, have a seat, son. We are not going to need you after all. It's been a busy summer for Chelsea. I will say, I like a lot of their business. I really do like the João Pedro signing. We've talked about that a lot. I think Liam Delap is a useful rotation forward for them. I think Jarell Hato is quite a talented young player, as is Estevao coming in from Palmeiras. I think they're going to get better in the attack, odds are, based off of some of the moves that they're talking about making, even if they aren't all complete yet. Jamie Gittins, I'm not all the way there on, but he will add something over on that left side. There's a lot to like about what Chelsea have done, even if the sheer mass of it is still quite jarring. Let's move into how they're going to play. Like, how are these new pieces going to fit? What kind of team are they joining? Enzo Maresca is the coach of this team, 45-year-old Italian. After his playing days, he started coaching in Italy, then moved to Man City to take charge of their reserves, then to Parma, then back to City as Pep's assistant, then Leicester helped them get promoted. For his first 2 months at Leicester, he lived at the club's training base in their facility, where he, quote, got a feel for the job he'd inherited. I really love that. Enzo Maresca is insane, as all the managers at this level are. And then he gets the Chelsea job. Last season was his first season there. On the whole, I think I referenced it already plenty. Very, very good season for Chelsea across the board. Style of play. They're a very modern, controlled team, Chelsea. They had 57% of the ball last year, third in the Premier League behind City and Liverpool. They like to play short out of the back. Usually they're in some sort of 3-2-5 possession shape. If that's on your bingo card, you can cross it off. It could be a 3-1-6, depending on the game. We saw that some throughout the Club World Cup. Maresca is not married to that shape. Like, he's going to be one of the coaches that pushes back, like all coaches, on like really even classifying formations in the first place. It is role dependent, it's game dependent, but often it is a back three in possession with plenty of players rotating and pushing forward. They will push a fullback inside at times. Reece James did that a bunch at the Club World Cup, a bunch last season as well. We've seen Malo Gusto and Cucurella push inside as well, either into the double pivot or into the attacking midfield line. And then the structure changes into more of a 4-4-2 defensively. There's so much flexibility in this Chelsea team, and that's one of the reasons that I'm most interested in them. We talk about this back three shape. They can get into that structure in so many different ways, with keeping the left back or keeping the right back, occasionally dropping a center mid, although that's much less common. There's so many different formulas for them to get into that structure. That's one thing that I think is interesting. Who goes where in possession? Right? Will Enzo ever get to play in the pivot, or is he just too light defensively? Maresca's talked about that before. Enzo Fernandez has mostly played higher up in that attacking midfield line. Will he ever be trusted to play deeper like he did with Argentina at the 2022 World Cup? Or is he just too much of a lightweight? I don't know, but I think maybe his best could come a little bit deeper down the field. What's the best attacking personnel grouping around Cole Palmer? Who's the best striker option for this team? Lots of things to be intrigued about if you're Chelsea. Key players this year, usual suspects: Palmer, Caicedo, Reece James, Enzo Fernandez, maybe João Pedro. List goes on. I am curious, though, what the best 11 looks like when the dust settles, right? Halfway through the season or in these big games later on in the year. Who is the go-to guy at striker? Right? Who are the who is the go-to left winger on that side? Who is the go-to left-sided attacking midfielder if Simmons comes in? How much do we see of Jarrell Hato at left back? So many things feel up in the air, and that's what happens when you have a squad that is 8,000 people big. My VSP for Chelsea, and then I'll wrap this up, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts. João Pedro has his second straight season where his non-penalty expected goals and his expected assisted goals are right on top of each other. Last season, I was looking through the numbers. João Pedro had 5.0 non-penalty expected goals, and he had 5.0 expected assisted goals. So he was getting in spots that aggregated 5 expected goals, stripping out the penalties, and he created 5 XG's worth of chances on his pass to find the person who was going to take the shot. They were exactly even on the dot as per FBref, which is wild. I feel like if I was in a room full of nerds, they would be nodding much more and saying, wow, that's a great VSP, Joe. You've done a really good job.
I think we're all waiting for you to explain what that means.
I already did, so that's tough.
Boy.
I think we will see those totals within, say, 3 of each other this year. So João Pedro could find 8 non-penalty expected goals and still have 5 expected assisted goals. Or he could have 11 non-penalty expected goals and 8 expected assisted goals. I think those numbers are going to be parallel. I'm actually really not so sure that that's a great VSP, but I wanted to bring it up because VSPs at their core, even though we've turned them into a competition, are about giving people things to watch for when you watch a team, right? That's why VSPs were invented in the first place. That's why we do them do them during every preview that we do. So João Pedro is a player who can go and stretch the line and score goals on occasion. But really what made him so special at Brighton, and we saw this over the summer, is his ability to link play in addition to doing all those things. He can be creator and goal scorer at the same time. That was reflected in the fact that both his scoring numbers, the underlying numbers, and his chance creation numbers were exactly the same last year, as I've said. And I think we will see those things relatively tightly grouped again this season for Chelsea, where he's going to have some of both of those things to do.
And that means he will be good?
I mean, I don't know. That's why I didn't say, he'll have 20 non-penalty expected goals and 20 non-penalty expected assists. I don't know exactly how much João Pedro is going to play. I think he's going to play a lot this year, right? I mean, Graham has him in his tier S of his Golden Boot players, right? I think we're going to see João Pedro have a real impact for Chelsea. But I'm not bold enough to say that many players in this Chelsea team are going to have a locked-in role with this team. I think it is going to be a bit more fluid than that. So all I'm saying is that when you watch João Pedro, whenever he's on the field for Chelsea, expect him to do a bit of both, right? Expect him to do some chance creating, expect him to do some goal scoring as well, or getting into good spots at the very least, in addition to the pressing stuff that makes him so effective in that defensive phase. I don't know if he's going to be good, but he's going to do a little bit of everything, and I think that's why Chelsea brought him in the first place.
Yeah, and I know that we frequently mock the number of players that Chelsea sign and they have in their squad. I presume they've still got the dual dressing room situation going on at Stamford Bridge, but that is what makes them so interesting as a team, is that they have so many different looks, so many different options. I agree, Joe, on João Pedro. It feels like with Liam Delap coming in, I'm a big fan of Liam Delap as well, it feels like Pedro's I think he's going to be starting number 9, but he's going to get 60 minutes in a game. They're going to bring Delap off the bench. Delap will start in other matches where maybe Chelsea want to play in more kind of like quick transition, or maybe like attacking behind into open space, which is where Liam Delap is really useful. And even things like at right back, they've got 2 top quality right backs in Malo Gusto and Reece James. And Enzo Maresca has been using Reece James in central midfield. More recently, that's where he used him in the Club World Cup. He's talked about him being like Chelsea's best all-round player. He's club captain, of course. So there's just so many different looks that this Chelsea team has, and I'm interested to see how it all solidifies in the season.
Joe, is the banter era over for Chelsea? We know we've done things differently in the last few seasons, and arguably they're doing it right now. But are they much more of a serious proposition going into this season?
I mean, we don't have to choose, right? To get to the heart of your question, yes, they are a serious team. Like I think this team has legitimate title chances. I don't think I'm quite bold enough to call them a title favorite, but they're a team that if we fast forward to the end of May and you tell me that Chelsea win the title, I would not be surprised, like at all. So I think they are absolutely a team that have legitimate aspirations and the ability to go out there and win real stuff that matters this year. At the same time, we can still laugh at how many people they signed and how many players they have and how many players they're trying to sell at any given time. I'm not prepared to give that up, so I think we can do both.
I have two Chelsea questions, one for Joe, one for the group. The one for Joe. Joe, am I correct in saying that last year you were, I think, more enthusiastic about Nicholas Jackson than at least anybody on this program? Are you surprised that they are so willing to part ways with him? I mean, obviously not given the strikers they've brought in, but he feels like he could have done a job for them.
Not surprised because this is Chelsea we're talking about. Is my honest answer. Like, and really, I couldn't fully begrudge many teams from moving on from Nicholas Jackson. The thing that I like about Nicholas Jackson is that he gets into good spots, and he is a useful defensive presence as well, up top as that number 9. He moves off the ball and finds goal-scoring chances. I mean, he scored 14 goals the season before last and had amazing underlying numbers. This past season was a little lighter, but he also didn't play as many minutes this past season. So I think he's going to go to another team, and they're going to be better off for having Nicholas Jackson in it. But while I'm holding that stock, I'm also not at all surprised. Nor do I think it was necessarily a bad decision for Chelsea, because I think João Pedro and Delap give them different looks, as Graham's already outlined, in a way that makes them a more complete team.
Another thing about Jackson and the potential of selling him is they signed him for €30 million a couple of seasons ago, and so my read on that is very similar to the Madueke deal, which Chelsea need those kind of transfers, those outgoing deals to happen. Without much of an impact on the quality of the team. I think they've done that with Madueke, who's a good player, but I don't think moves the needle for them in a meaningful way. And I think exactly the same with Nicholas Jackson. I think he is a good player. I don't think he's going to win them a Premier League title, and they can probably pocket £60 million for him this summer. So actually, I think it kind of makes a bit of sense.
If he is Newcastle's consolation prize, do we think that ends up working out well for him? Do we feel like maybe we see a resurgence or him kind of thriving there as the main man in a non-Chelsea, somebody's nipping at your heels every 12 seconds sort of way?
He's not Alexander Isak is the one concern I have about him going to Newcastle in
Very
that
few people
situation
are,
in
I
that
would
team.
say.
That is true.
I know I'm not.
And then my other question for the group, I've asked several questions. If you look at the players who played the most minutes last season for Chelsea, the top 11, I'm wondering, Joe, you've got me now wondering when you were saying you're not fully sure who is going to play the most minutes up top, who will be the starting striker. It does make me wonder who will be the locked in starters more or less for Chelsea. So Moises Caicedo had the most minutes in the Premier League last year with 3,300. I'm assuming we would consider him a locked in player for Chelsea.
Yes.
Cole Palmer was second on that list. We would put him in there. Levi Colwill third. Can't really include him. He would have been, but now obviously with the injury, no. Marc Cucurella, do we think he stays around as being a top performer? All right, so we're at 3. Enzo Fernandez, I would say yes, so we're at 4. And then Robert Sanchez, no, right? Because we're assuming new goalkeeper. Pedro Neto, yes, so now we're at 5. Joe, would you agree with Pedro Neto or no?
I think Pedro Neto will play a lot of minutes because there are a lot of minutes to be played. But when Chelsea are going to go out and sign Garnacho as well as Simmons, although they're different players, and you look and you got Estevao joining out wide, and you've also got Jamie Gittins joining out wide, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm just not sure.
So we're uncertain on that one. Nicholas Jackson, no. Madueke, no. Malagusto, yes.
Yeah, I think so.
He'll play a lot of minutes. Yes.
All right. So we're at 5, and then Jadon Sancho got the 11th most minutes for Chelsea last year. Gonna guess no on that one. So 5 of the top 11 minutes getters last year, we would assume will continue to get consistent high numbers of minutes, which feels about right for the business Chelsea have done so far.
Yeah, and is a testament to how deep their squad is. I don't think that should be viewed as a bad thing. I don't know if anybody was viewing it that way, but it's a reminder of, wow, they've got a lot of bodies to make it through a long season, which I mean makes sense from a squad building perspective. I know that Pep has pushed back against that at times, but yeah, I definitely have Chelsea stock. I don't know how much of it I have or exactly how much it's going to net me, but this is going to be a good team.
I mean, changing, if we assume that's 5 starters from last season, changing 50% of your team is...
That's the model, though. That's the Chelsea model, where they're keeping the absolute superstars. They're keeping the Cole Palmers. I would count Caicedo in that category now. And then they're selling the Madueke, the Jacksons, players they can make a profit on, which then give them a chance to add another superstars to their team. And I guess the idea is, after 5 or 6 seasons, they're going to have a team of superstars that they're going to keep for a number of years. I think that's the plan.
4D chess, Graham. 4D chess happening at Stamford Bridge. Thank you very much, Joe. Graham, let's come to you. We'll go to a different area of London. The Crystal Palace, the fanciest sounding team of all of soccer. A palace made of crystal. They've got the FA Cup in their hands and the Community Shield now as well. 2 big Wembley wins for them in recent games. 12th place finish last season. What are we thinking about Palace this time around?
The real-life AFC Richmond, or do you dispute that, Ryan?
Yeah, the law suggests more of AFC Wimbledon, I would argue, Graham, but please continue.
Do the colours and the actual stadium that they play in, are they the counterpoint to
the actual
to
stadium
AFC
that Wimbledon played in for a decade? Go on.
That is owned by Crystal Palace. Yes, they don't actually play in a palace, and it's a shame for Crystal Palace.
Their squad build does seem to be sort of reminiscent of the first season of Ted Lasso, in which they're actively trying to self-destruct and lose a manager and maybe replace them with Ted Lasso. We'll see how that goes. That could end up happening if Oliver Glasner gets too frustrated by the situation.
Yeah, if Glasner's assistant takes over at West Ham and all of a sudden has grey hair for no explicable reason, then maybe that is the real parallel between the two teams.
Narrative.
Yeah, it was narrative, of course. But yes, they play at Selhurst Park, which is unfortunate for Palace, because if they played at Wembley, Ryan, as you referenced, with their Community Shield wins and their FA Cup wins, they might actually win the league. But no, they don't. They beat Man City in last season's FA Cup final, which was one of the moments of the season for me, one of the most memorable moments of the season. That was Palace's first piece of major silverware in 119 years of existence. Grown men crying, all that stuff. It was magic. And then just to prove that it wasn't a complete fluke, Palace beat Liverpool in a penalty shootout in Sunday's Community Shield at Wembley, in a game where, yes, okay, pre-season vibes, but nonetheless, they were more than a match for the Premier League champions. So this is a team that is showing that they can beat the best and they can hang with the best on their day. Unfortunately, the league season wasn't quite as successful for Palace. In fact, they actually regressed in terms of their final position. They finished 10th in 23-24. Last season, they could only finish 12th. That was largely down to a bad start, where it took Palace until their 9th game of the season to register their first win. Do you remember that period of confusion where nobody was quite sure why it wasn't working? I had predicted Palace to be up there in the European spots. They made me look very silly in those first 9 games of the season. But they did recover, they turned the corner, but they finished with just 2 wins from 8 games. So they started poorly, they finished poorly. Of course, that poor finish might have been down to their FA Cup win. And winning the FA Cup did qualify Palace for the Europa League, but they were demoted to the Conference League by UEFA over multi-club ownership concerns. John Textor also owns Lyon, who are in the Europa League, and UEFA was essentially unhappy that there are not separate people running the 2 clubs. Other clubs' owners have put their shares into blind trusts, like Marinakis, who was the one that complained to UEFA about this. Forest have gone into the Europa League from the Conference League. Palace have gone from the Europa League into the Conference League, and everyone at Selhurst Park is very happy about that whole situation. And that situation has had, it seems, an impact on Palace's summer planning, because it has been a low-key window for Palace. So low-key that Oliver Glasner has called it out and expressed his concern over how thin his squad is. He has called for at least 2 new signings before the end of the window. He says that he was, quote, promised more by the ownership, which those aren't great signs or sounds to be hearing from your manager before the start of the season, particularly one as highly rated as Oliver Glasner. They have brought in Borna Sosa, a left-back from Ajax, and Walter Benitez from PSV, who will be a second or third choice Matt Turner-esque goalkeeper. And that is it so far for this team. The positive thing at this stage is that Palace have managed to keep hold of their best players. That could and probably will change before the end of the window. Eberechi Eze has been strongly linked with Arsenal and Spurs, both of whom are apparently willing to pay his release clause of around £60 million. Mark Gahey is now into the final 12 months of his contract. Steve Parish, who is the chairman with lovely quiff hair, has come out and basically said that he will be sold before the end of the window, which I'm not sure that's the best negotiating position to take for the chairman of your club to say that, but nonetheless it seems like he is on his way out. Adam Wharton is another high potential asset who seems destined for the top level. There isn't much transfer chat around him at the moment, but nonetheless, coming into the summer, it seemed a possibility that he might be a target for some bigger clubs. And then Jean-Philippe Mateta, he was linked with a few clubs earlier in the window as well. He is stuck around for the time being, but there's still, a couple weeks left of the window, and I think 1, possibly 2 of those players might be out the door, which would have a big impact on Palace's team. They have kept hold of Oliver Glasner himself, which did not look likely at the end of last season. He was strongly linked with RB Leipzig. He is still at Palace, although he is into the final year of his contract. And there is a sense that he is waiting for Palace to show they're ambitious as he is. So it seems like a bit of an unhappy relationship at the moment. In terms of their style of play under Glasner, Palace aren't really known for being a team that want lots of the ball. They had the 4th lowest average share of possession in the Premier League last season, but that doesn't mean that they are unenergetic. In fact, Glasner wants his players to work hard off the ball. They actually topped the Premier League for successful midfield pressures last season. So even though they have a deep starting position a lot of the time and a low point of confrontation, they will pressure opponents in midfield when the triggers happen, and they can spring attacks from there. And Palace, I think, are very much in the same bucket as Bournemouth and Brentford and Nottingham Forest. There's a bunch of teams that play this well and play this way very well. They want to get into quick transition. They have players who can hurt you in those phases. And Jean-Philippe Mateta, who I mentioned earlier, he is one of those players. He is the player at the head of the Palace attack. I don't think any player has benefited more from Glasner's coaching as much as he has. This is a bit of a wild fact, but only Erling Haaland, Alexander Isak, Mohamed Salah and Cole Palmer have scored more Premier League goals than Mateta in the time since Oliver Glasner arrived at Palace, which is wild and says a lot about how good he has been in front of goal. I mentioned him earlier, but Eze, he's a real difference maker for Palace as well. The way that Palace set up, they have Mateta as the focal point, and then Eze and Ismaila Sarr behind him, and they have kind of the freedom to stretch wide but also to come inside into central areas. And Eze is a dribbler. He likes to take players on. He is good for a long range banger every so often as well. He brings a threat on the edge of the box. And then Sarr, who I just mentioned there, he brings a bit of verticality and has the pace to get in behind. So I like the variety that Palace have in that forward line. The width in the team usually comes from the wing backs, and Daniel Munoz, I think, is one of the best wing-backs in the league. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the entire Premier League. He is up and down that right side all game. He has a real attacking threat. He's good defensively as well. He's an all-round kind of wing-back. And then it's Tyrone Mitchell on the left side who does some of those same things. Then it's a back three. It's a pretty consistent back three, or at least it was in the second half of last season, of Marc Guéhi, Maxime Lacroix, and the USMNT's very own Chris Richards. And there is a real balance between the three of them. I think Lacroix is an excellent all-rounder. He can play out from the back. I think he's probably even more so than Marc Guéhi, who keeps being linked with these top teams. I think Lacroix has the highest ceiling of the three of them. Chris Richards has really
almost fizzy, you could say, carbonated in some ways. Sorry, go on.
Just as well, I know that's a brand of soft drink you get in the US that you don't get in the UK. I've never had in my life. But anyway, Richards has really grown over the last 6 months. He does the defensive basics really well. I think he has a different role for this Palace team than he does for the US. The US depend on him to play out from the back. Palace don't really do that with Chris Richards, but nonetheless, he's an important player. And then Dean Henderson in goal seems to be a penalty kick master. He brings a bit of the Jordan Pickford bants. I don't know if it's an English goalkeeper thing, but he was. Did anyone see shenanigans with the cap in the Community Shield? Ryan, did you watch that part of the game?
I love a baseball capped goalkeeper. I do. I love it.
Yeah, he went very early with his twirling of the hat. I think after the first save, he was doing his kind of his victory lap. But yeah, it's a team with. It's a team with a lot of quality. There's a lot to like about Palace as they are now. It's just whether they can keep the core of that team together. And that brings me to my VSP, which is that Palace will make the semi-finals of the Conference League, at least, but it will not be with Oliver Glasner as manager. I think after Thomas Frank, he and Andoni Areola are going to be the next manager targeted by a big club. Whether they should or not is another matter. We spoke about Areola yesterday and how his style of play maybe doesn't translate. I think the same about Oliver Glasner, but that's not how big clubs make decisions. And he doesn't sound Glasner, he doesn't sound the happiest at Palace. So I think Palace's talent, when you see the rest of the field in the Conference League, they're going to make the Final Four, but by the time they get to the semi-finals, it will be with a different manager in that dugout.
Wow. Glasner's not going to be glad all over then, I suppose, Graham, going forward into this season. Something I'd like to highlight, Graham, I feel like there's a real class system this season in the Premier League. You've got the upper class teams who are going to likely finish top four, maybe the European spots. You've got the working class teams at the bottom, the three teams coming up, probably more than likely the model suggests are going to go down again. Then you've got this growing middle class. And I think we've got three of those teams we're probably talking about in this episode: Palace, Everton and Fulham. There's a few others we put into that bracket. And it just feels like they're all kind of competing in that same little strata in the middle, where they've all got very good quality, they've all got really good managers, but they're all kind of on tenterhooks like, this could fall apart any second. We lose one ingredient and we move into the working class.
Yeah, and about that middle class of the Premier League, I can't remember if this was off mic that we were talking about this or what, so I apologise if I'm repeating myself here. But it's been that growing middle class that has brought the overall level up of the Premier League up in the last couple of seasons. And this summer, for the first time in a while, it's felt like a lot of those teams have been pillaged for their best players. We've seen like Wolves lose Cunha and Ait Nouri, Forest losing Anthony Alanga, almost Gibbs White. Palace, I think, are going to lose a couple this summer as well. Brentford, as I covered yesterday, and Buemo, Wissa's on his way out. Thomas Frank has gone to Spurs, and so it feels like there might be more of a divide between the top teams in the Premier League and like the bottom half this season. I do wonder how the models of a lot of these teams sustain them this season, and Palace are one of the teams that if a few things go against them in the next couple of weeks, I might be concerned about.
Okay. One more question for me. I do need to email Steve Parish. Is it info@crystalpalace.co.uk? That's the one I need, right? Yeah.
That's the one he checks every day.
Excellent. Yep. Good. I'm glad that is a monitored inbox. All right. Thank you very much, Graham. Let's take one more quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Everton and then Fulham. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Premier League preview. We go now to Mr. Taylor Rockwell, who's going to tell us all about Everton Football Club, who, Taylor, have a new stadium in which Jack Grealish's calves will be paraded. Wonderful stuff. How's it going to go?
Great name as well.
Yeah, buddy. New stadium, new ownership, new old manager. It is a lot of optimism around Everton. I think maybe more optimism than has been there in quite some time. And a lot of that has to do with the new ownership and the new stadium, and with David Moyes being back. Because otherwise, I don't know how optimistic I would be. Given their season just prior, they finished 11th in the table. 42 goals for, 44 against, which is more or less like dead on their XG. 41.8 expected goals. They scored 42. Expected goals against, 44.6. They conceded 44. So that's good, I guess. But in terms of their other numbers, last in progressive carries, second bottom in progressive passes, fourth in goals per 90. They had the third worst pass completion rate, second worst in possession, most attempted long balls, but ninth in completion percentage of long balls. So not the most like stirring of numbers. And I think that says a lot about how things were going under Sean Dyche, about how the roster build had not really helped him very much or put him into a very strong position. But then you have the new ownership, you have the new stadium coming to fruition, you have David Moyes back in charge, and it does feel like things improve from there, and they statistically improve once Moyes takes over after a 12-year absence. They took 31 points from the 19 games that he had been in charge. They had gotten 17 from the 19 games under Sean Dyche in that same season. So there is an improvement. There is a response that feels very David Moyes to have his team perform better in the second half of the season than the first. More on that when we get to my specific prediction. But there was still quite a bit of work to do in terms of making this squad feel more consistent and capable of competing at a higher level to which this club aspires. So in this offseason, they've done a good bit of work. They cleared out a number of names, almost all of them on freeze. Abdoulaye Doucouré is gone. Calvert-Lewin is gone. Ashley Young, Mason Holgate, to name just a few. They have spent thus far £75 million on transfers. And the most notable one, I think at time of recording, Jack Grealish is not yet done, but does feel like it will be done. Is that correct, Graham? Monitor of all things transfer?
He had his medical, I think, on Monday, but his calves are so big they had to get some new equipment in. They didn't have that at the new stadium.
That makes sense. And I think they tried to put him in long socks for the medical, and he was like, not having that. No, thank you. He really is a critical signing, even if I don't understand how they're going to use him and how he makes them better in terms of their lack of depth in certain areas. But I think when you look at what Moyes targeted and what he has asked for in this offseason, it's amazing that Oliver Glasner wanted 2 signings. Moyes said he wanted 9 signings. Yeah. And until Grealish had only gotten 5 so far. That includes Tierno Barry from Villarreal, who they got for about £26 million. He prefers to be called Barry, so we're all just going to call him Barry from now on.
Yes.
6'5". I keep seeing had a very strong campaign in La Liga last year. 11 goals for your starting striker in a team that qualified for Europe. I don't know if that's the strongest of campaigns. It does seem like he will be the backup to Beto thus far, but Graham has positive things to say.
No, I like Tierno Barry. I think he's got a potential. My
Barry.
concern with his name is Barry.
Graham,
which
have
is
some
always
respect,
always a positive.
please.
I do. I'm about to dish some out. He's got potential. The thing that concerns me with him going to Everton is there's a lot that's similar to Beto, right? Which might be the plan. He might be like the backup, and so they can keep that kind of approach. But I think he's best when he's got open space to attack when he's carrying the ball, and so I think it would be a better idea to have a bit more variety. But yeah, I think he's a decent player.
There you go. So Graham thinks he's a decent player, but is likely to be a backup, I think, at least to start the season. So in terms of starters you want brought in your signings, we're 0 for 1 so far. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall from Chelsea for £25 million. He will be a starter and has been starting in the preseason. They make midfielder Carlos Alcaraz permanent, so you've got a starter there. But after that, Mark Travers, backup goalkeeper to Jordan Pickford from Bournemouth. They bring in Moroccan left back Adam Aznou from Bayern Munich for about £8 million or so. Thus far in preseason, he's looked a little bit lightweight, looked a little bit errant in his positioning, and is not going to start over left back Mykolenko unless Mykolenko gets hurt, which he did in that preseason game. So we'll see if he ends up starting this weekend. I think Mykolenko will be in there. So until the Grealish signing, they had made 5 signings, but only 2 of them are starters. Now you add in Jack Grealish to that mix, and suddenly you're still at only 3 starters, but you would assume Jack Grealish is going to be there. But it does make that attack so much stronger automatically. And if they end up signing a right winger, which they desperately need, they've been in prolonged talks with Southampton for Tyler Dibbling, Dibbling, I believe Graham calls him. That does immediately, I think, move them up further in my estimations, because now you've gotten, 4, 5 starters in there right away. It just feels like you are going to have a stronger Everton team across the board. There are still vulnerabilities, including that right now it's a big old question mark when it comes to who will start at right wing. Kind of a question mark as to who will start at right back. We would assume it's Nathan Patterson. I don't think he has covered himself in glory with Everton supporters, which leaves Seamus Coleman as your other option.
Forever and always.
Yep.
He's got to be 97 years old. I'm sorry. There's just no way.
They let 40-year-old Ashley Young go, so I guess they wanted to keep one long-term servant in there. So you bring in Grealish, which gives you an immediate focal point, an immediate boost of attacking creativity, but we also know he wants to play on the left, which is where Dwight McNeil plays. It's also where Njai plays, and Njai was such a critical performer for them last year. It leaves some question marks as to what they're going to do. The assumption would be you move one of them to right wing, you let Grealish on the left, you keep Dewsbury Hall in the middle, or you have some rotation in there in a kind of 4-2-3-1 is, I think, the most likely shape. But it means that Everton still have depth issues and squad issues across the board, but at the same time, I think it's just a much more optimistic picture. And the Grealish signing again is such an interesting one, because all of the discussion around it that I saw was really split. It was, he makes our attack instantly better. He's not yet 30. He hasn't played a ton of games for Man City recently, so it's not like he has thousands of miles on those legs, those very muscly, short-socked legs. And there is much reason for optimism. And though they are subsidizing his wages to the tune, I think the wage packet is going to be about £10 million this season, with an option to buy of £50 million. It's not a huge transfer right away. You're not putting a bunch of money into a player and then crossing your fingers it works out. You are in a position where if it works out and he does a bunch of things, you make that deal permanent. And if he really does a bunch of things, there's a chance that you're getting him sort of for good value almost, especially given the current market. At the same time, under former manager Farhad Moshiri, this was the type of signing they would make to sort of be like, we made the one big signing. James Rodriguez, you're welcome. And that hasn't always worked out so well for Everton. So there was this feeling of, is it the same old business? Is it new business? I'm inclined to say this is new business. This is Everton building around what Moyes wants this team to be. They are bringing in players that I do think make this team better, and a team that already had a good spine. But because you have Dewsbury Hall added to a midfield that has James Garner in it, it has Idrissa Gueye in it, but in your back line, you've got Branthwaite, you've got Tarkowski, you've got Michael Keane. So you've got a kind of strong spine there with good center backs, and you've got Jordan Pickford in goal. And I think that goes a long way towards explaining their really strong defensive numbers, plus the fact that a Moyes team is going to be defensive. But I think adding just a bit more attacking creativity, a bit more flair, I think makes them a more exciting team. That leads to my specific prediction, which I tried to make this more specific as I went, but the basic prediction is that this is going to be a classic Everton under Moyes team, which is that even with hype, even with Jack Grealish coming in, even if they sign Dribbling Dibbling, they're going to start poorly. They're going to start slow. And it's going to be a team that for a little while are near the bottom of the table, maybe not in the relegation zone, but flirting with it. And then in the second half of the season will be remarkably better. And so the specific prediction here would be that basically in every measurable category, in a positive way, they will improve in the second half of the season. So points per game average, goals scored, goals conceded, whatever you want to go with, those numbers are all going to improve because they haven't had a full squad together for preseason. They are using a ton of different formations. They've used a different formation in like every game that I watched highlights of, admittedly. But I think that speaks to me that they're trying to figure out the best combination of players and personnel, but they're still bringing in signings. They're kind of trying to make it all work right now. Moyes, I think, has a good idea of what he wants this team to be, but they're still figuring it out. And then on top of that, an interesting one, there have been some growing pains with the stadium in terms of like kiosk sales and commercial sales and vendors, like systems not really working, but also by people who've been to the stadium, just a feeling of we're not quite sure what the vibe is going to be. We don't know the kind of areas where we're all going to gather the way we would have at, say, Goodison Park. There's even been a feeling that they're like sort of trying to maybe artificially replicate aspects of what Anfield has with like big flags behind the goals. And I don't think that is necessarily fair or true, but I think it is an interesting idea that a new stadium, when you've been in your old one for so long and has such history and tradition, it can just create a little bit of a different atmosphere that you have to figure out the vibe and figure out how to kind of come together as supporters. And so I think they might even have some awkward moments to start off the season from a crowd noise perspective. I saw one comment that was basically, I forget who they played in their most recent preseason friendly, Roma. But that like Roma brought 100 supporters and they were almost as loud as the Everton supporters because you didn't have sort of a clear understanding of who was leading what and which groups were assembling where.
They put pineapple on the pizza in the stadium. That was what the noise was about.
That was a big one.
Yeah.
I do think this is a team that if they have an injury to a key performer or two, will be in a really difficult position. But I think as the season goes on, they're going to figure out their best 11. They're going to figure out how to play together. I think Jack Grealish is going to look, if not like his old self, a close approximation thereof. And I think they will improve because I think you've got an ownership group that is a more positive ownership group. You've got a new stadium. You've got a trusted hand in there. And David Moyes, probably the most trusted position he could be in, certainly of any of his most recent gigs, including West Ham, where he was hired twice, lest we forget. So I think it is positive signs for Everton. I don't think they will necessarily start positively.
Is David Moyes the most likeable manager in the Premier League? Like the one you'd most like to go for a beer with?
Now that Big Ange is gone, yeah.
Graham,
the resignation there,
mate.
Graham.
Graham sort of has me believing that like you don't want to drink with Scots ever, though that like thus far every Scottish person I've ever consumed alcohol with has been a delight. So I'm not sure how true that is, but Moyes does seem like maybe you say the wrong thing, he's going to be a little bit angry.
Yeah, I was at Oasis in Edinburgh on Friday night, and I'm good for being in the same place as Scott's drinking for at least a few years.
I think I want to have a beer with Hertzler, right? I mean, he's old enough to drink, right?
Is he old enough? Yeah.
Just barely.
Yeah, but he's going to like analyze the way you drank the pint and what you ordered and how cold it should have been. It feels like he's going to bring a lot of data to that.
Taylor, you do
session.
know. I said I was the
course.
one who wanted to have a drink with Hertzler.
Good point,
So all
good
those
point,
things
good
are
point,
just
good
like
point.
pros, not cons, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So I think in seasons past, I've tried to like talk myself into Everton and talk myself into, I think things are going to be okay. And maybe a lot of that had to do with an affinity for Sean Dyche and a feeling like he didn't get a ton of support from the old ownership. And I don't think he did in the end. I think it's kind of a disservice to him the way things ended there, though I think also it was a justifiable decision. But I think Everton supporters should be optimistic, even if it's going to be an up and down season, an uneven season. I think there are going to be growing pains, and I think it's the sign of stability and progress.
Yeah, and I think Moyes is a big part of that stability. Close your ears for this bit, Joe, because despite all the squad issues and the summer I don't think has been ideal, I just feel like David Moyes will find a way to get this team pointed in the right direction over the course of the season. Yep. And to counterpoint, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying about the stadium, Taylor, because that's always a concern with a team moving to a new stadium, is like, have they essentially diminished some of their own home advantage for a while until they get acclimatised? But at the same time, my read on Everton as a club and a fan base is they're ready for this new era. They're actually moving stadiums, which is very different to like when West Ham did it and they were very unhappy about leaving Upton Park. I think they are very much in the mood for some of the doom and gloom to be lifted, and so having the symbol of the new stadium on the River Mersey is really impressive. There have been some teething problems, including a big red Budweiser banner around the inside of the ground, which fans are not very happy about, and particularly considering that Everton, all the cones around the stadium are blue because they can't tolerate the red or the dark orange cones. So some of those teething problems will be ironed out, and I expect Everton will have a broadly positive season.
That's where you just go Bud Light, right? Then you can get the blue label. That feels like a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's the way
Plus
to go.
Fewer calories, and that's what we're all about. And Graham, I think, like, what I would say in response is that I think that stadium is going to erupt when there is that first big turnaround, that first big comeback. And I think certainly when there's the first goal in the Premier League for Everton, this season they're going to erupt as well. But I think it takes that moment when they turn it around, when everybody's together, when you can feel the stadium pulling in the same direction. And if they do have a slow start, I'm not sure when that moment occurs. So that's kind of where it kind of folds together for me. So maybe they have a hot start. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think it is going to be growing pains for at least the first couple months.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Taylor, for your services to describing Everton. One last team left for this episode. Fulham. Did you forget about Fulham? I'd forgive you if you did. What did they do last season? They finished 11th is what they did. They broke their record points tally is what Fulham did last season. They narrowly missed out on the Conference League, and they were one game from Wembley in the FA Cup as well. 54 goals scored and 54 conceded. That's satisfying in a bland kind of way. I think they don't get the dues that your Bournemouths or your Brightons or your Brentfords, your very close West London rivals, Brentford, get, despite finishing in the same sort of area, despite having like a good manager who plays fun, exciting soccer. I've got this theory that kind of Fulham are like the mild Sousa of the Premier League. They're inoffensive. They're unlikely to cause a stir. And maybe I'm being a bit harsh there. They're not a spicy burrito. They're lemon and herb are what Fulham are. Like, here's a challenge for you. Tomorrow, try and name all 20 teams in the Premier League off the top of your head. I bet you forget Fulham.
Ryan, can I jump in to say, I was renewing my license at the DMV when I was sitting waiting for my number to be called. By the way, I love the DMV, and I will hear no slander about the DMV. Go to a place, I'm sure Ryan has experienced it in Italy. Go to a place where there is no organized bureaucracy and you have no idea how it's supposed to operate and you have to go from window to window aimlessly while there's no air conditioning. I will happily sit in a seat in an air-conditioned room and quietly do what you want until we call your number and then we'll resolve your problem. Yay, the DMV. When I was waiting, I was trying to come up with my list of the 20 Premier League clubs to then assign our previews, and I got to 19. And I did the inevitable, like, there are definitely 20 teams, right? Like, are there 19? Maybe there's just 19 and I've had it wrong the whole time. It was Fulham that I left out. So there you go, Ryan. There you go.
Theory proven. Theory proven. Thank you very much indeed. Incidentally, I'll just let you in. My wife is at the DMV right now. She's been texting me. 120-minute wait, and they all just went to lunch. Cool. Great.
That's the North Carolina DMV. So that's a different animal.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
In South Carolina, it's much better. The better Carolina. Yeah.
Offensive. All right,
that's the lemon and herb DMV.
Okay, I suppose the point I'm making about Fulham is that they come across a bit vanilla, maybe forgettable, but I don't think it's necessarily deserved. They are capable of very entertaining soccer. Last season, they beat Chelsea, they beat Spurs, they beat Liverpool last season. They took 4 points from Liverpool, and that 3-2 win over Liverpool at Anfield, probably the high mark last season for Marco Silva's side and his style. Stability is what they've had over the last few years, and that's a very good thing that most teams would aspire to. It's something they didn't have necessarily in the pre-Silva era. I will say also, very cool stadium to visit is Fulham Stadium, right on the River Thames. It's got a fancy new stand with a swimming pool in it.
Yeah, it does.
It does indeed. It's quite middle class and fancy, I would say.
What?
My favourite. It's Fulham's. It's a very posh area of London.
It's a health club, so it's like part of their plan to have recurring revenue throughout the week. There's like a David Lloyd style, which I don't know what that is, like health club, like an Equinox style, style health club with a pool.
Talk to me when you've gone full America and you have jacuzzis on the sidelines at games, which is a thing that we've definitely had in the NFL. At
Well,
least.
hang on. That's a Jaguars thing, right? And they're owned by Fulham's owner, Shahid Khan. So there you go. It's coming.
way.
Okay, I
It's
guess we're
coming.
going to be talking to me very soon then.
That caught me so good because the Arizona Diamondbacks have a pool like just beyond the fence, like the home run, like you hit a home run over the wall. There's a pool right there. Like you can catch the ball if it's coming over to you, if it's a home run while you're in the pool. I've never done it before, but I think Fulham are just ripping straight from Major League Baseball's most heralded franchise. Anyway, Ryan, would you like to continue? With
You can
Fulham?
catch that home run, or if you're not paying attention, you can catch a concussion when that ball nails you in the head while you're floating in the
boy.
pool.
Correct.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, maybe one day one of the TSS listeners will get to go in the swimming pool at Craven Cottage. They can tell us all about it. My favourite quote from Fulham executives is Fulham's chief executive, Alistair McIntosh, who, speaking about the new stand and the pool, he said, "At other clubs, you hear the C word. Here, the C words are champagne and caviar."
What? That can't be a real quote. That can't be a real
Ironically, Graham, a very C word thing to say, I would suggest. Anyway, they kick off to Fulham against a fellow middle-class Premier League side Brighton on Saturday. Yeah, that's a real quote. What have they done over the summer? I think they've been so focused on that swimming pool, they've not realised the summer window's open. That's what happens at Fulham. Maybe Chelsea is actually in the London Borough of Fulham. It's not in Chelsea. And I think they had all of the transfers allocated to Chelsea instead of Fulham, because all Fulham have done at time of recording is backup goalkeeper Benjamin Lecomte coming in from Montpellier, a backup to Bert Leno. Marco Silva's quote here: "Unfortunately, we don't have the players to adapt for our group." He said this in pre-season training in Portugal a few weeks ago. "We don't have players to adapt for our group. We usually use this time for new signings to adapt." He said, presumably while twiddling his thumbs and playing Grow a Garden on Roblox as he prepares for the new season. In Portugal, Fulham did beat Nottingham Forest and Al Ittihad. In case you were interested, they've won 5 of their 6 pre-season games. Many Fulham fans are worried. I've spoken to some saying they're worried that they take Silva for granted at this point. They've hinted at the frustration at a lack of spending that he appears to have, and I think maybe it's a Glasner situation where they might lose him to other climes if they don't treat him right, shall we say. I've got a quote actually here from a friend of mine who's in Charlotte, Matt, who is a Fulham fan. And his quote was of his frustration at this point: "In the Premier League, when you stand still, you go backwards, and that's what we all fear will happen." I would estimate, says Matt, a 15th place finish right now. I don't think it's going to be quite that negative. I'd have them maybe a couple places higher than that. Good squad, no obvious weaknesses in that squad, but I suppose the risk is not a great deal of depth at Fulham, and they're not doing much about that. To come back to Marco Silva, it's his 5th season at Craven Cottage. He's brought them that much-needed stability I mentioned earlier. It's his final year of his contract, and that's another big fan talking point, that he could be off pretty soon if they don't get the old checkbook out. But for now, as I mentioned, fun, attacking style, lots of control that he has, focus on short passing and wide combos, pass and move. That is the Fulham groove. It's all good down there at Craven Cottage and their swimming pool fun they're having. The key players, I think Fulham have this maybe a reputation for sort of rehabbing and regenerating players who've come from bigger teams. So like Alex Iwobi, obviously a key player for them. Andres Pereira, maybe put him in the same boat. And Emile Smith-Rowe, who arguably has a higher ceiling this season after being the club record signing last year. And I think if they get more production from Pereira, from Iwobi, from Smith-Rowe, that could be the real difference maker to push them up the table at this point. In terms of other key players, Anthony Robinson. He's quite good. Virtually ever present last season. Very important cog in the team. Fan favourite. He might be the best player if you ask fans. One to watch out for. Very big player to watch out for. Well, not diminutive in size, but big in stature. Josh King, not the Norwegian former Bournemouth one, excuse me. This is the 18-year-old youth product, Josh King, who's come out of the Fulham Youth Academy, midfield playmaker, made a few appearances last season, but he is also a fan favourite at this point. Potential breakout star as a sort of number 8, maybe could play out wide as well. But Josh King is your man to look out for at Craven Cottage. My very specific prediction for Fulham, I think it's kind of the opposite of what Taylor mentioned for Everton. My prediction is that after match day 10, Fulham will not be higher than 10th position in the Premier League. Last year, after Boxing Day, Fulham only stayed between 9th and 11th spot. They had a very specific band in which they stayed in that Premier League season. I think basically what they start strong and then they drop off. So it's kind of the opposite of what Taylor was saying for Everton. I think they were consistent, but there is a drop off. They gave up 28 points from winning positions last season. Only Spurs gave up more, and they typically kind of see a little drop off after the new year. So with squad depth being an issue for Fulham, I think the back half of the campaign could be a little bit of a creep down. So the 15th place that the fan Matt mentioned, I think maybe a bit low, but I wouldn't be surprised if they crept a little bit lower than their 11th place finish of last season. But yeah, I don't think they're going to get any higher I don't think they're going to get in the top half of the table sort of from Christmas onwards. That's my prediction, Graham.
The player that you mentioned in your preview there, Ryan, Smith Rowe, he is the one who could move the needle for them, because there was a lot of excitement about him last summer. What did you say, club record signing?
Yep.
And then he basically did nothing last season. He got injured, which is kind of the Emile Smith Rowe way at this point, unfortunately for him. He got injured, that knocked him out of his stride, found it difficult to get back into the team. But if he can hit the sort of levels that convince Fulham to pay that sort of money for him in the first place, that's the sort of player that could maybe push them up the table a little bit. But I share your concern that they haven't done a lot in the summer market, this is a trend for a lot of these middle class teams in the Premier League this season. I don't know if they're leaving their business until late, but I need to see more to suggest that they can really push into the top half.
Yeah, agreed there. As I mentioned, so I think he has much more potential this season, as Smith Rowe, injuries permitting, I think, and he's going to be like the dictate the tempo kind of guy in this team, as you say, the difference maker. So I would definitely agree there. Unless Josh King is the super duper breakout at 18 years old. Could happen. Who knows? There we go. Fulham, everybody.
Huzzah!
Yeah. Huzzah! Yay. Did you forget about them already, Joe?
No, I was locked in. Absolutely locked in. I'm buying all the Josh King stock, and if it doesn't hit, Ryan, I'll be blaming you.
You go, King.
I'm still confused about this lack of signings. And to be fair, lack of sales. Like, they've let Carlos Vinicius go. I think Willian is no longer employed by anybody.
He'll be back.
He probably will.
He's heard they've got a pool now.
Is this them? Is this like a PSR thing? Is this truly them just forgetting to make signings? Do we feel like it's them being comfortable with their squad depth and not trying to disrupt? I think, forgive me, Ryan, if you've already trod this ground, but I'm still a little head scratchy on that one.
It's a head scratchy proposition, Taylor, but their sporting director is Shahid Khan's son, I believe. And I think he's
Always
very proud of running the numbers and saying, we've got exactly what we need. I'm just going to sit back here and watch the thing that worked last season work again to keep us in the middle of the table.
I mean, when you come from the proud and winning tradition of the Jacksonville Jaguars, you don't want to mess up that model at all.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. And to you.
Oh, man.
I miss that show.
With their houseboat elementary schools.
All right, that's Fulham. Plenty of houseboats on the Thames by their stadium. Good link,
pool.
Taylor. Well done. Very good indeed. All right, that is episode 2 of our Premier League previews. Plenty more coming on the feed. See if you can guess which. If you know the alphabet, you'll know what's coming next. But for now, on this episode, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your services.
My pleasure, my friend. I enjoyed in the Discord when somebody gave us credit for doing our whole preview in an hour and 15 minutes and then was immediately corrected with, it was their first 5 teams.
Yeah, and then the collective, oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. There's a lot of teams to get through. Everyone deserves their credence in this here Premier League, and that's what we're doing here. Joe Lowry, thank you very much indeed for your help here.
Thank you. Ryan, champagne and caviar is on the way to your place as we speak.
Those are my kind of C words. Thank you very much, Joe. And Graham Ruffin, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey. I don't know how to add to that, frankly.
Let's not then. Let's close this one up, listener. Thank you for joining us on this one. Part 3 coming to your feed very shortly. But for now, bye.